So last week, of course, we had a huge week in college football. This past weekend, I don't know why I just said that twice, but yeah. So after a big weekend, everyone's, of course, looking at the schedule this week and going, "Oh, okay." Besides Bama and Florida State, those games involving those teams, not a big weekend in college football. I'm going to tell you guys here up front, much like week 2 back a month ago, it's happening again. This could be another surprise Saturday potentially. So just because it's not a huge weekend of marquee games and there's not a lot of top 10 matchups, doesn't mean interesting things could potentially happen. So it's always a possibility when you're in with college football. So of course, welcome in for Verticals Podcast episode 132 here on a Tuesday afternoon, or not a Tuesday afternoon. We usually do Tuesday afternoons, but here on a Thursday afternoon on October 2nd, finally October now, 2025. Yeah, this could be an interesting weekend for college football. Definitely another surprise Saturday, if you will. So we're talking all about that here in a few minutes of the Upset Alert segment, as usual. Oh man, I forgot to close that tab there. Okay, should be all right. Yeah, so could be a surprise Saturday. You also have a not head coaching. Team approval ratings and midseason check-in, if you will, for a lot of teams, and several have a couple of failing grades in there, unfortunately. That's just the case sometimes. And then we'll get into Bucs Seahawks predictions. So, and we also have the Tuesday poll as well. Instead of doing it Tuesday, we're doing it on Thursday, so a bit of a weird switch up there. And just checking Twitter, make sure everything else is breaking. Of course, a lot of things happening, but no, we should be all right. But yeah, if you're new here, of course, welcome in. We do this show twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. We will do a reaction show typically on Sunday night if I'm not tired yet. But we typically do that Sunday, actually early Sunday morning, Saturday night, after all the games are done. We'll probably do it this weekend. Excuse me, I would imagine. But yeah, so I guess as a quick potential programming note, remember when I mentioned on Tuesday night, that hopefully cannot talk. I'm so excited for today's show. I mentioned that we may have to do, or I was hoping we didn't have to do another Tuesday night show, because we just had one this week. We had one week before last week. We may have to do it again. I think I may have to do it again. We'll see about it, but there's a good chance we're going to have to. So just pay attention to the Twitter social feed of Twitter for information on that in terms of when we're going to go live again. But yeah, more unlikely next Tuesday, probably no during the day show again. I know it's frustrating, but things happen, so just have to deal with it. So potentially no show Tuesday during the day. We'll see, but I'll update you guys on that before the weekend's over. But but yeah, so usual stuff. Again, this is independent media. I've never talked to an advertiser before. Of course, this show is free of charge. It's not behind a paywall or anything like that. This is completely free. Just make sure you subscribe, though. You'll like that. And be sure to give you guys, give your feedback on the comment section. Haven't seen any much lately, but hopefully someone will. But trying to think here. Of course, follow us on the socials, X, Twitter, Spotify. We upload our episodes there on the audio version only. So I'm looking at my Twitter here. Make sure that thing's popping up. In terms of news-wise, but yeah, that's the usual rundown stuff. Pretty simple, I think. And let's actually get into it here. I made a mistake here on my notes. Actually, it's 132 instead of 131. So, week 6 college football upset alerts. Maybe not the most appealing upset alert segment this year. Definitely the more tamer one. As we sort of, I've started to figure out a lot of these teams, but I'm still a bit concerned for several of these teams. You'll see here in just a moment. First one up here, this Friday, tomorrow. You guys know who Illinois is playing? Who do you think they're playing? They're playing Purdue on the road. It's a rivalry game. I'm a little bit concerned about this. I think the line, according to FanDuel, is 9.5. So it's not small, nor is it big. It's kind of in the middle. I'm watching it, Illinois, because of course, coming off of a huge emotional win over USC. Now they're rewarded with going on the road to play a much, more of a regional rivalry there with Purdue and Illinois. Just watching it. It's in the yellow category. Of course, if you're new here, we usually do our upset alerts in colors, if you will, instead of using numbers and stuff. So for upsets or for games, I believe the upset will happen. It's in the red category. Yellow is, it could potentially happen. So maybe. And then green is we're just watching it just in case. But yeah, this one in particular, it's in the yellow category. Almost put it in the red, but I mean, look, Purdue is Purdue, at least for this year. A lot of new transfers coming in. Of course, Bray Odom, who just got there like 5 minutes ago, it seems like. So that one, it's a maybe. And the same thing with this one, Kentucky at Georgia. Now, the spread on this game, really interesting. So as I looked this up on FanDuel, not a sponsor of the show or anything, just we use it for research purposes. Let's see here, Georgia. So they're a 20.5-point favorite over Kentucky. It's at home. Of course, this game last year was like, 12, like 13, 17 or something like that. Really, really low scoring. Kentucky's weird to me with Mark Stoops. Now, they usually have one of these like close games against a really good team, either on the road or at home, where they're really competitive in. It's sort of like their Super Bowl kind of. I'm not seeing that here. I think Georgia, coming off of last week, I think their hope is, at least for Georgia fans' sake, that loss last week doesn't turn into multiple losses. But I think the fact that you're playing Kentucky probably makes you feel a lot better about that. So I'm not totally concerned. It's a possibility, given Mark Stoops' history. So we're watching it. It's maybe. So it's in the yellow category. We're not overly concerned about it, but it's enough to where we're putting it up there instead of in the green category. Now, this one's weird to me. This one's very weird. Well, it may seem weird, actually. Let me rephrase that. It's not weird to me, but maybe weird to you. So who do you think Iowa State's playing this week? Who do you think they're playing? I think they're off this week. They're playing like Kansas or something, or Oklahoma State. They're playing on the road at Cincinnati. Now, you maybe think to yourself, okay, Cincinnati, yeah, they should beat them by, 100 points. They're favored by, 14.5 or more. Well, according to our friends at FanDuel, Cincinnati's actually the favorite here. They're at home. Now, this is sort of a weird thing here with Iowa State. The reason why the folks in Vegas are concerned and why I am concerned. They're dealing with a lot of injuries right now. I think like their kicker and their backup punters are hurt or something like that, and one of their best corners are out for the rest of the year, I think. So they're dealing with a lot of injuries right now. And they've also been sort of living off of what the Bucs in the NFL, Tampa, my team in the NFL, sort of what they've been living off of is like the red light theory. And for those of you who are new, what that means as red light theory is that sort of like when you, some people, what they do sometimes on the road is you sometimes, you get close to a yellow light and you realize, hey, I have enough, momentum or potential to, or not momentum, just potential to make it across before it goes red when you're supposed to stop. A lot of folks do that. It's kind of like an unwritten thing where it's like people will do it, just kind of thing that society does. But the problem is, as long as if you keep on doing that, eventually you're going to get caught. So in the NFL last week, Tampa had a lot of close games, right? The Eagles, before the Eagles game, right? The Jets game, Houston game, and first game against Atlanta. They were, very close, tight, competitive games and had to have like a game-winning drive on all those games. So eventually they were going to get caught, and they did. And I think that's going to happen to I think that's what the feel is of Iowa State. They've had so many close games, so many close calls to where it's going to catch up with them. It's going to catch up to them at some point. That's all I was trying to say. Eventually, they're going to get caught. And that's why the line is what it is, not to mention the injury stuff. And, Cincinnati, they're I know a lot of folks didn't watch that Nebraska game when they played Nebraska in Arrowhead back, feels like a million years ago. And that was a very competitive game, okay? That was not some blowout game. That was a very close game. And, Nebraska is everyone's, a lot of folks were picking them going to the playoff. I didn't. Or at least I don't think they're going to. I didn't really predict that, but I didn't imagine they were going to. But that was a very competitive game, and those guys can play up there. Satterfield, the coach, he's been sort of embattled when a lot of folks are kind of not all the way in on him, but he's fine as a coach. But Cincinnati's a favorite for a reason, and this is, of course, in the red category, obviously, because Cincinnati's obviously the favorite here. Of course, in terms of the upset, when we're doing the segment, it's sort of the team that people perceive as better. Could they lose? In this case, Iowa State, a lot of folks believe they're a better team than Cincinnati. But as I said, after that, I may have said this last week, just because you have a number next to your name doesn't always mean you're going to be favored. There's going to be certain situations where you're not going to be, where you're going to be a dog on the road somehow in some way. And this is one of those games. There's another one here in a few minutes we'll talk about. And I think Cincinnati being the slight favorite makes sense to me. It's in the red category for sure. And I'm actually going to pick Cincinnati to win the game outright. I am very concerned for Iowa State. Again, I think it is a lot of the red light theory. They have not been caught yet. I think they will get caught this weekend. Feel very much so confident in that. Not to mention Cincinnati, of course, this is their Super Bowl moment, coming off of a huge, crazy game last week against Kansas. I think this is a sort of a momentum game, or last week was a momentum-grabbing game. This one, it could potentially be a carryover from that, and I think they're going to win the game outright. And I think, sorry about moving my hand over the camera there, but I think Vegas having them as the favorite makes sense to me. So that one is in the red category. Next one. I'm sure a lot of folks are watching this one, especially if you're a sadistic. I think you're going to be watching this like me. UNC at Clemson. I don't think Clemson will lose this game. I think the fact that they're playing a UNC team, with all the issues they have, with Belichick, and this whole adjustment process has not gone the way people thought it was going to go, or at least a lot of folks did. So I'm not totally concerned, but the reason why it's in the yellow category here for Clemson is because, the vibes thing and our players checking out. Has that team quit yet? I think they kind of are, which is different compared to other Clemson teams. And Dabo, at least in this current iteration of not current iteration, well, that's what we're in right now, but just within Dabo's tenure after 2010 or whatever, this is not typical of them quitting like this. So we don't know for sure if they're actually in quit mode. Those guys are sort of checking out. Could potentially be. But I also know, reason why I'm also concerned, at least somewhat concerned here, is that this could be a potential Super Bowl spot, no pun intended there, a Super Bowl spot for UNC. Because so far in the Bill Belichick era, they have not had a huge win yet. This could be it, especially right if Clemson's checking out and UNC, maybe they start getting some confidence going. Although they have, the games they've lost, they have looked pretty dreadful in them. So it's in the yellow category. They're somewhat concerned here for Clemson, but they are a favorite, according to FanDuel, I believe. If I go to, 14.5, that's pretty big being on the road. So we'll see. This next one, sort of like the Cincinnati Iowa State game. Virginia going on the road to Louisville. Of course, Virginia is a ranked team. So again, let's play this game again. Who do you think is the favorite? Most of you probably are thinking, well, yeah, it's Virginia, right? They're ranked, have a number next to your name, Louisville. Louisville, who cares about them? Well, if you go to our friends at FanDuel again, not a sponsor of the show, again, just an asset we use for research purposes as I search for the game. Here it is. So again, a lot of you are probably thinking, oh yeah, Virginia's the favorite, right? They should win the game. No. Again, much like that Cincinnati Iowa State game, again, just because you have a number next to your name doesn't mean you're always going to be favored against all these teams. You're not. This game is another example of that. I'm pointing out my screen here. You guys can't see it, but this game is another example of that. Again, Louisville, according to FanDuel, 6.5-point favorite. It's at home. Kind of makes sense to me. Louisville, again, I get it with, Miller Moss he's playing okay, but, turnovers and whatnot. But they're still a decent team. They're not bad. As you'll see in this week's edition of the Tuesday poll, again, they're still a top 25 team, I think. I think they're in there somewhere. And not to mention, too, Virginia coming off of an emotional win. Can Tony Elliott get that team back after that? They're playing against a Louisville team that sort of has been forgotten about. Not from us, though. We still talk about them. But this one, much like the Cincinnati game, I think Louisville's going to win the game outright. I think Virginia, they're just wrong place, wrong time. I think they're going to lose. I agree with Vegas. I think this line makes sense to me if you understand how betting works and how sort of the dynamics of college football work. If you're just a casual NFL fan, you probably just assume, oh yeah, Virginia should beat them by 100 points. That's not how this works. And obviously the folks in Vegas who put out these numbers, they understand it. So this number to me makes sense, even though to the general public it's like, how is Louisville's favorite and they're not ranked? Again, just because you have a number next to your name in the rankings doesn't guarantee you anything. It does not. It's not like you're the 24th ranked team in the country and you're guaranteed to win every single game. No, you're not. And again, there's always these weird scenarios and weird things, circumstances that sort of, put out numbers like this. And this can happen sometimes. And it's happening this week. So that's 2 games where 2 ranked teams are on the road and they're not favorites to win. That makes sense to me, and I understand why they're doing it. And I'm actually picking the team that is favored to win the game outright. And, I mean, again, it's hard to explain it, to someone who doesn't follow the betting stuff or isn't a sicko like me. But I'm just telling you guys, it's like that for a reason. Whether it's injuries or just situational stuff, it is what it is. But I know a lot of folks don't like it, but it's college football. Next one. Who do you guys think Penn State's playing? Who do you think they're playing? They're playing an FCS team, bye week. They're going on the road to UCLA. Now, I put this in here as a joke because I was watching Bordeaux, the college football video game guy. He put out his rebuild for Penn State. Because what he does is he does these rebuilds on the video game after, a certain team loses either one game or multiple games. So they usually do a rebuild during the season, typically. But so he was, of course, after Penn State lost to Oregon, he decided to rebuild Penn State. And, of course, in the video game, when you start your dynasty in your first year, you play the real-life schedule. And, of course, he hops in after the Oregon game. He plays the UCLA game on the road. And, again, I know it's a video game. I know it's not real life, but he lost that game. The Penn State in the video game lost. So this is kind of a joke. I'm not concerned about it, but I don't know. We're watching it, so it's not I'm not saying they're going to lose the game outright. I'm not saying a video game simulations all of a sudden predicting the outcomes. No, I'm not saying that's how you should be, picking your games or whatnot. But it's interesting that was the result. Now, granted, it was him making mistakes in the game, the user error. But still, I mean, it's we're watching it. Sort of the vibes thing with Penn State, but kind of threw in here as a joke. But no, I'm not concerned. I'm just it's a game I'm interested in just to see how they look after. That's all it is. I got a couple more here, and then we're going to move on to midseason approval rating. So this is number 1 here in the Big 12. Going to have an interesting under-the-radar type game. So we talked about this on Tuesday night. So there are 2 teams in the Big 12 that are undefeated right now that are playing each other. One of them is Texas Tech. That's obvious for those of you, even if the casuals out there. Then who's the other team? Who do you think it is? Is it Utah? Well, they already lost. Who is Texas Tech playing? Is it BYU? No, not them. Is it Iowa State? No, we just talked about them. It's Houston. Willie Fritz in Houston. Now, I will say they are dealing with some injuries as they played. I think they played Oregon State last Friday, so they're banged up a little bit. But the thing is, though, it's on the road. It's on the road. And Houston last year, if you don't remember, they beat Kansas State last year at home, so it's sort of a similar situation. Now, the line on this game, if I check, let's see here, Houston. It's Texas Tech minus 11.5. That's pretty big for me, given that Houston's still undefeated. Now, you can make the argument saying, well, yeah, Houston not being the favorite, or at least the line, the spread being that big makes sense, right? Because Houston, their talent level is not the same as theirs, which is true. But it's Willie Fritz, and they did it last year. So I'm not saying I'm disappointed in the folks in Vegas, but I'm just, I guess I am a little bit disappointed because I thought, when I saw this game on the schedule, I'm like, yeah, that game should be a pretty tight spread, right? It's not. So because of all of that, because I do respect those guys over there, even though I may not fully agree with them all the time, and this one to me is a bit of a it's in the yellow category. It's maybe, but I have a sneaking suspicion this might be more of a challenge for Texas Tech than I think a lot of folks think. Again, just because you have a number next to your name doesn't mean you're guaranteed anything. So I am watching this one for sure, even though the spread is pretty large. It's in the yellow category. So obviously it could happen, but it's not likely, but we'll see. This next one, another interesting game here. So Mississippi State's playing at Texas A&M. Of course, the last time a lot of you saw these 2 teams, A&M struggled offensively to beat Auburn, and then Mississippi State, a very competitive game at their home field, despite the fact it looked like it was Neyland South. Just a very odd stadium takeover. But so the reason why this game's in the yellow category, it's not because I think A&M didn't lose the game outright. No, they're not. I think Texas A&M should be able to take care of business here. I think it's the spread according to FanDuel is 14.5, but Texas A&M's, at least their secondary to me is a bit interesting to me. I don't think it's all that great. They struggle against Notre Dame. They didn't struggle against Auburn, though. Part of that is the Auburn offense is street pizza. It's not that good. I mean, like, they have good receivers, and they couldn't take advantage of an A&M secondary that, to me, seems a bit sus. I think their defensive line, linebackers are quite good, but their backfield, I'm not sure. So this will be the first time since that Notre Dame game that they'll be properly tested. Because I trust Mississippi State's offense more than Auburn's. That's just facts. So I'm watching this game. I'll be interested to see again, could A&M, can those safeties and guard this, veer and shoot stuff that Mississippi State runs. So we'll see about that. But that one I am watching for sure. That's in, again, the yellow category. And then lastly, I know I've been going for a long time here. Again, a lot of games are covering here. Minnesota at Ohio State now. This is in the yellow category only because it's a look-ahead spot for Ohio State. Because I believe, if I recall, and again, I can count the same thing with Illinois, but Purdue, it's a bit of a look-ahead spot, even though that's a rivalry. But the big game that everyone, I believe, in the state of Illinois or in the state of Ohio are probably looking at the moment, at least in the near future, is this game on October 11th, which is about a week from today, being the Illinois game, Illinois hosting Ohio State. So I guess if you're Ohio State, just be careful. I mean, Minnesota, they're a team that's not getting a lot of hoopla. They're a good team. I mean, I know they lost to Cal, but Cal for the most part is a decent ACC team. So it's not, it's not the end of the world. So just we're watching this game. It's in the maybe category just because of the look ahead factor. That's why I have my attention on that game, because it's a look ahead spot to the rivalry game against Illinois and the Illinois game. So we're keeping tabs on it, but this one could have easily been the green category, but because it is a look ahead situation, it's in the yellow category. So that's upset alerts for week 6. Not totally elevated, but again, just because, let's say people are saying it's a quiet week, doesn't mean it couldn't be a surprise Saturday for the casuals, and I think it's going to. So, yeah, very excited for a lot of those games and a lot of interest, especially on some of them, or a lot of them. I'm going to get some water real quick. We'll mute here on YouTube, and I'm going to get some water real quick, and we'll go straight into midseason approval ratings, and we have a few teams on here, a handful of teams. We'll be discussing their grades so far for about midseason, and of course we'll do this again after season is, I guess, concluded, if you will, at least the regular season, I guess. Or, well, actually, we'll probably be after the national championship game. But anyway, get some water real quick, and we'll go ahead and do that. I was muted on YouTube. Water bottle here, a new water bottle with the school I went to. How about that? So, not a sponsor of the show anyway. Well, it's not a company, so, hey. Not necessarily a case of free advertising, but, you got to shit out the old alma mater sometimes. But mid-season approval rating. So, we're about midway through the season, if you will. Most of us are, either 4 games in, or 3 games, or 4 games in or 5 games in, so a bit, around the midseason part of the schedule. So I figured, why not we do some approval ratings, good old approval ratings, or I guess approval ratings, grades, or whatnot, same thing. So we'll go through some of these. Again, it's not every single team, just teams I am focused on. So it's not an exhaustive list, just a very select handful of teams here. First up, Ohio State, A+ so far. Defensively, even with the new staff coming in, if Matt Patricia coming in, even though me and some others had concerns about him coming in, not necessarily being a college ball, someone who's used to coaching in that in this version of the sport of football, he's done pretty well. He has surprised me, so I'll give him that. I'll give him that. The offense, Julian Sayin, has been fairly decent. So because of the defense and how the offense has been going so far, A+ so far for Ohio State. No complaints whatsoever. I don't know what that noise was. Had a bit of a weird stutter. This next one. I guess next up, Georgia, A-. The offense, not the issue here, I think, for Georgia. The offense has been fine. I know a lot of folks are still, it's kind of turning into a meme with like Mike Bobo and, we need to fire him and get rid of him. He's fine. The offense is fine. Defensively, though, I'm concerned. I will agree with Bud Elliott over on Cover 3. I don't really feel Georgia anymore. At least I don't feel Georgia to the extent of they don't look like the Georgia teams of like 3 or 4 years ago, which makes sense given how much has changed in the sport with like the transfer portal and, you're not able to have the same depth as you used to. So that makes sense to me. But still, though, with that staff and with Kirby's DNA, disappointing, I think is the right way to put it. So A- could have gone a little bit lower, but, they, of course, expect a lot there. So I think A- makes sense. Could have easily gone B+ here, but I think A- is fine, especially with the offense. I don't think anyone's complaining about that now. Defensively, though, yeah, I think the Tennessee game and this past game against Bama, certainly signs of trouble for sure. This next one, Texas Tech, A+. Going as good as it could be. I mean, this is kind of as good as it can get for Texas Tech. I mean, the last time they were undefeated like this was 2013. That was, of course, with the Bucs QB Baker Mayfield before he went to OU. Was there. He was the quarterback, and Cliff Kingsbury, the current OC with the Commanders. He was the head coach. So that's how long ago that was, and they, I think, finished the year like 8-5 or something like that. So it ended poorly. Hopefully, it's a better result for them. But offense, defense, no problems. I even know with Morton, the quarterback, being he is made out of glass. That's the joke around the industry. But even with him, his injury stuff, it's been fine so far. Been pretty good. I mean, you beat Utah on the road, handled them, a team that I still have a lot of respect for. So, A+ for them. So far we've had all A's, but trust me, it's going to get bad here for the next two. Auburn, F. I know that sounds harsh, but I think what you're seeing, and that's something I've talked about before previously about Auburn and the sort of how having grown up in the state of Alabama and being around both Bama fans and Georgia fans and Auburn fans, you are starting to see a lot of the I don't know how to put this, sort of the hawkishness of the Auburn fan base. Now, that's not a bad thing. Look, if your fan base is very passionate and very, very, I don't know, well, I guess passionate is the right word to put it. They're passionate about your, the team, whatnot. That's a good thing, right? That's not, it's not a bad thing, but it's just that's how they are. And I think you're starting to see how that passion can sort of turn into to them being very hawkish. I think you're starting to see that with a few frees, and which, look, I somewhat agree with. I think what they have done offensively, the output is just not good enough. You're wasting what appears to be actually kind of a good defense. It's just, to me, this team, at least for Auburn this year, feels very much so like that 2019 Auburn team with Malzahn. Defense is very, very good, very much so elite in some cases. Then the offense is bleh. So F for me for Auburn. I think based on what they've done so far and the fact that we're going to be wasting a defense, that's why they're so disappointing to me. And I also believe they got quarterback wrong with Jackson Arnold so far. So they're in the F category. Next up, not much better with Florida. Could have gone lower, but I think it makes sense. A D+, only because while I understand that a lot of folks assume that Bill Napier's getting fired, but I agree with that this might be the end for him. So like last year, I know Josh P brought it up on his show a couple of days ago, and the same with the guys on Cover 3, that there is potential for Florida if things do get right here. If they are able to beat Texas this weekend and somehow harness some energy, if you will, to have a strong finish. So if they finish, like, for example, 8-4 or better, or even 7-5, he's not going anywhere. Like, I think Billy's going to be fine if they do that, even though things look scary right now, contrary to Florida fans, but at least their belief, the belief of Florida fans. But so that's why I'm not putting them in F. I don't like Auburn to where it just feels like to me that team feels dead, and that team is probably in a position to quit. Probably, I don't think Florida has quit on Bill Napier yet, at least to extent, well, at least like fully. I've mentioned before that I feel like the LSU game. See, that's on my nose. I felt like the LSU game towards the end, if they started to quit, but that's the only time I've really seen them quit. so far this year. And at the moment, at least as a major, sample size, they have not. So because of that, because I still wonder if there's still just an ounce of juice left in the I guess hypothetical orange here if you're Florida. So I'm not putting them in the F as Auburn because I think Auburn, they're definitely on quit watch. Florida, I don't know if they are yet. I don't know. So they're at the D plus. Obviously, the offense has been the frailty, and sort of like Auburn, they're actually wasting a kind of a legit good defense. So there's that. Bama, put them in an A minus. Now, if this was before the Georgia game, probably would have been a lot lower. Probably around a C plus probably. But the Georgia win cures everything. Of course, this could change after the Vanderbilt game, frankly. But A minus seems fine. Defense, still some questions there. I think their secondary still good, but the D line as well. Offense getting better with Ty Simpson. Who, look, I was harsh on at the beginning of the year. I'll be honest with that. Maybe I was a little bit too harsh on him. He's turning out to be just fine, so not totally concerned with him right now. With Bama right now. Oklahoma A plus. I mean, they were off last week. I know with John Mateer, he's gonna be out for at least some period of time. Look, they have Kent State. God bless Kent, but they're gonna get absolutely destroyed with or without John Mateer. I think Hawkins, at least against a borderline FCS team or basically an FCS team, you should be, reasonably comfortable with him operating the offense. Now, if it's next week against Texas, couple more left here. Michigan B plus. Offense has been sort of sweet and sour. I think the Oklahoma game still stings for a lot of them, but I'm not concerned about that. I think for Michigan, it's just get through your conference schedule. Whatever happened in the Oklahoma game was going to happen. I think obviously their future is going to be next year and beyond. I think so. B plus for them. Penn State, same thing. B plus. It's not been perfect. It's not been great. There's been a lot of just angst, just angry feelings there coming from State College. But of course, like James Franklin's not getting fired. At least I don't think he's going to. But they still have the rest of their schedule left. And I do agree with Josh Payton. He said this, on his whenever he's appeared on any shows or whatnot, that I do believe Saturday night, at least, we sort of crossed into a new chapter, if you will, in the James Franklin book. If you were to do a book on, James Franklin at Penn State, we were, of course, his first couple years of Chapter 1. Chapter 2 was from 2017 to this past weekend. I think we crossed into I think we did end up crossing into a new chapter this weekend. And I don't know what that chapter is. Is it the beginning of the end, or is it just potentially a new version of Penn State? I don't know, but I think a B plus is fair. It's not, it's not an F. It's not. I almost did think about going into a C plus, but I think a B plus is fine. I'm not, too concerned about them spiraling out of control. Of course, I see that and they end up doing that, but I'm not too concerned about them. But disappointing for sure. But I think anything lower than a B is a bit extreme. I think a B plus is probably fine, at least if you're looking at this generically. Now, if you're a fan, obviously, F. But, it is what it is, I guess, at least from my standpoint. Yes, a new chapter has been crossed. At least a new threshold has been crossed. You've sort of began a new chapter of James Franklin with Franklin. Don't know how it's going to end, though. So we don't know. Last one here, Clemson F. I don't know what else to say. I mean, this offense looks bad. They're not playing for Kate Klubnik. I think that's something, too, that I know Bud Elliott on Cover 3's mentioned. It just doesn't seem like, to me, they play hard for Kate Klubnik. And I think, sometimes when you've seen him get sacked, the offensive line's not helping him. I know that's not like the end-all, be-all, but that is a bit of a peek, if you will, into the psyche of the team. At least that's sort of your context clues. So the team, to me, feels just off to me. I think for the first time in Dabo's tenure, ever since 2011 onward, it's probably the first time I've seen that team quit to the standpoint. Now there's been games where they have quit, the bowl game against West Virginia and then the Florida State game in 2013. But those are just small sample sizes. It wasn't just large collective, a large collection of them quitting. With the game against LSU, the game against Georgia Tech, and the game against Syracuse. So yeah, F for Clemson, I think that is somewhat appropriate. I think. And we're not done yet here. We still have the Tuesday poll, and we still have Bucs Seahawks predictions. So, again, a bit of a shorter show here, but it's all right. Get the poll pull up here. Of course, you guys can't see it, so I'll read it out to you guys on both stream and on Spotify. Actually, real quick, let me get some water real quick. 1 second, and let me mute myself on YouTube. All right, just making sure I'm not muted because that time before when we've done shows in the past. But all right, week 5 of the Tuesday poll coming out on a Thursday, so we were a day late, but it's okay. Hopefully next week we'll be back on the regular scheduled programming, if you will, from that standpoint. But yeah, so we're gonna do same as usual. Start from the back, work our ways at the top. So from 25 to 1, we're gonna start out with 25 through 20. So 25, you have Virginia 4-1. Makes sense. I think they're, at least offensively, they're a good team. Defensively, I'm not too sure about them. I know if the injury's on the O-line, it's not the true sample size for them. I know I mentioned they're going to lose to Louisville this week, which, there's a real shame in that, but is what it is. Mississippi State at 24, you lose a close game, you're not moving out. Iowa State back in the poll now. I had them out, Iowa State, because it just felt like to me their schedule was a bit, I don't know, it's not a trash schedule, at least their resume, but it's not great either. But, they're undefeated, even though, again, I think they'll lose this weekend again to Cincinnati, but they're there at 23. 22, USC, I think the AP dropped them. They're still in our rankings, so I didn't move them. Illinois at 21. Again, they the head-to-head. You have to honor the head-to-head there, so that makes sense. Then Louisville at 20, still undefeated, still out there undefeated. And again, they play Virginia this weekend, and I think they will win that game. All right, 19 through, I guess we'll do 19 through 16. 19 Texas, again, still not impressive. Now, I'll say this, though. If Texas were to win this weekend, which I think they will, they'll be, I think, a very competitive game. They could move up because I still somewhat respect Florida, and I do respect, going into the swamp, Griffin Stadium, and actually getting a win there is not, it may seem easy this year, at least in the recent years, but trust me, it's still one of the tough places to play in college football, especially when the team's good. So if they do that, you can move yourself back up just a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit. But yeah, they're at 19. Missouri, quietly undefeated, they're at 18. Could be a little bit higher, but your resume's not been the best lately, even though you're playing your schedule, so you're doing what you're doing, but there are just other teams ahead of you that I'm more impressed with, say the least. So Missouri at 18 are undefeated. Tennessee, 4-1, still undefeated. I think that win over Mississippi State, I know a lot of folks will look at it and go, man, that's a terrible win for them. Close win. It's not a bad win. It's a good win. So they're at 17. I didn't drop them down. South Florida, still in the rankings. I think just because, look, you lost to Miami, only lost so far. Like you should be still ranked, even though the folks at the AP and coaches have decided to, shut out USF even after one loss, which is kind of odd to me. So South Florida, they're still there at 16, not moving anywhere. Let's see here, 15 through 11. 15 LSU. Didn't drop them that much because, it was a competitive game, but their offense is still, look, their O-line plays bad. Of course, Nussmeier's dealing with whatever he's dealing with, the injury stuff. So, look, defense is still going to keep them in games, but, I think 15 is appropriate for them. Now, Notre Dame is at 14. They have the best quality of losses, but I do agree with Bud Elliott. So I actually do disagree with Josh Pate about Notre Dame in the playoff. If they were to run the table, let's just say Notre Dame, if they were to run the table according to the AP rankings, and I guess just sort of projecting out in the future, there is a real chance that Notre Dame, if they're to go 10-2, all of their wins are going to be against teams that either are not ranked, that are bowl eligible, or teams that are bowl eligible, meaning that their restrictive schedule in terms of wins is going to be complete crap. And I do agree with Bud. I think a 10-2 Notre Dame team, with the way things are projected to go for their opponents, they're not in the playoff. And I think a lot of folks will I think they'll be shocked by that, but I don't see it. If the committee, for some reason, to put him in, I would look. I honestly, I kind of disagree. I don't think a 10-2 Notre Dame should be in, based on the fact that their schedule with their wins they have coming up are, if they're to win the rest of their games, it's like they're combined like strength of schedule, like it's like a lot of losing teams on that schedule that are still left. So they're at 14 though, but I'm not expecting them to move up that much, at least in my poll. But who knows? So they're at 14. 13, Penn State, 3-1, then drop them. And I dropped them significantly because there's other teams that I think should be ahead of them at the moment, but they're still a good team. They're okay for the most part. At least they're okay in terms of this. Like they're not like, I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff or anything like that. They're not going to go like 7-6 or whatever, but I'm still not totally out on them as a playoff team. They're still in, but we'll see. At number 12, Vanderbilt. I know some folks have them in their top 10, but I'm not there yet. I mean, I think their strength of schedule for sure. It's not been great, but I will say this though. They are doing what the team should be doing, which is winning all their games. So, there's that. And then number 11, Georgia Tech. Not too inspired by their performance against Wake Forest. I get it. It was a noon kickoff, a sleepy game, if you will. But, they're still hanging around. Ironically, two teams of gold and black color schemes now. Top 10. Georgia at 10, 3-1. Bama at 9. Then Florida State. So sort of in order of, I guess, the honoring your head stuff. So Florida State at 8. Bama at 9, Georgia at 10. So in that order, of course, Florida State beating Bama beating Georgia. So that, I think that order, at least in my opinion, makes sense. If you were to do a ranking, I would assume you would respect head-to-head there with all those teams. I think them being grouped together like that is, I think, pretty appropriate. So, and of course, Florida State, they get Miami, and then Bama gets Vanderbilt. So if they win those games, they're not moving anywhere. Frankly, I think they're probably going to stay there. If they continue to win, they'll probably stay close to each other. So I don't expect them to have much in the way of separation. Now, number 7, we have Ole Miss. Now they are debuting in our poll. Impressive win over LSU. You get rewarded. I think they're a top 10 team. I think their offense is actually legit. Defense, not so much, but it is what it is. Texas Tech at number 5, dominant, doing what they should be doing against a relatively easy schedule besides that Utah game. Oklahoma, ditto at number 4. Number 3, Miami. Self-explanatory. They are, again, the best D-line, best O-line in the country. Of course, their big test. Their big test is against Florida State coming up, and then in Oregon at 2, and then Ohio State at 1. No change up there. And in fact, Oregon actually moved up just a little bit. So some other teams moved down. But Tuesday poll, week 5. We'll do week 6 coming up on Tuesday. So we're in the show here with a Bucs Seahawks prediction. So one more time, I'm going to get some water real quick. We'll mute on YouTube, and we'll be back here in just a moment. Okay. Bucs Seahawks. This is a 4:25 game, I believe, or 4:05 on CBS. And there was some, because I know with the MLB playoffs, there were some rumors going around that, hey, because the Mariners are both, the Seahawks and Mariners are both playing on the same day, could this game get moved around a little bit, maybe to like the 1 o'clock window, which would be really early. So thankfully they're not doing that, which it's like they weren't going to do that anyway. But just a little interesting dynamic there. So if you're going to the games, it'd be weird that yes, there is a baseball game going on, but it'll be after the game's over. But there'll be just a lot of folks there. Going to either event. But yeah, Buccaneers at Seahawks. This would be again the 4:05 game on CBS, I believe. 4:05 on CBS. For some reason, the Wikipedia says the time has not been determined yet. So regardless, I'm imagining it's pretty much so set in stone. At least I think it's set in stone. But either way, Actually, let me check here. Is it actually changing or not? Because according to Wikipedia, I don't know if, it is what it is. It might be a little bit earlier. So let me actually check here. Is this actually going to be moved? So I checked this earlier, but I don't think it's going to be moved. Let me see. Doing some research on the fly here. Again, I don't think they've changed it yet, but I don't think they have. Yes, I guess Wikipedia has not changed it. So, yeah. So for some reason, yeah. I mean, there's a reason why. But again, the Seahawks and the Mariners game, they were taking place like 4 or 5 hours like after each other. So, yeah. So apparently the game's not being moved. Either way, it's the Kevin Harlan crew. So hey, at least we'll be getting a very energized announcer calling the game. Now, according to FanDuel Sportsbook, they are the Seahawks a 3-point favorite, not 3.5, a 3-point favorite, so a field goal favorite. So that means on a neutral field, these teams are about even, which makes sense to me. I think both of these teams are kind of mirror images of each other. Strong defenses. Seattle with Sam Darnold, who I'm sort of becoming a fan of. I think he's done a good job of sort of, I don't know, like restoring his career, if you will. Of course, he was with the Vikings last year. Now he's with the Seahawks. Mike Macdonald, very much so a well-respected defensive coach. Very, very good with getting those, getting his defenses ready to go. I guess what I was trying to say. Yeah, they're very good defensively, and I'm expecting this game to probably be a very low-scoring game. I'm not expecting it to be a very high-scoring game, so that one I'm sure is going to happen. But for Tampa, there needs to be a fast start here if you want to at least have a chance to win this game. You need to start fast. Obviously, the special teams, no real confidence at all. So I'm expecting some sort of mishap, either like a blocked punt or something like that is going to happen. It's a trend now, and it's something that's just going to happen. So I'll be very stunned if that does not happen. Of course, the injuries, still the same, but the new one that is a bit of a mystery is Bucky Irving. We don't know for sure what it is. I mean, he's been seen in with crutches and whatnot, so it's to me, it seems a bit odd that he got injured. I thought he looked fine last week, so I don't know if it's like a precautionary thing during the week, but so he might not be fully able to go. So he may actually, be actually hurt, and it might end up being the Rashard White, Sean Tucker show Saturday, which Sunday, which it's a good problem to have with Tampa. I mean, you have 3 good tailbacks. I mean, you have, of course, Bucky. Rashard White would be a starter for most teams. The same with Sean Tucker, probably. So it's good to have that problem. But other than the running back thing, the O-line will look. Like I said before on the show Tuesday night, it felt like just to me that when Tristan Wirfs came in there or came back, it felt like the offensive line got worse. So hopefully they get that worked out. We'll see about that, but. Again, I think for Tampa, I got to emphasize a fast start. It's going to be a tough crowd, probably the best crowd you have faced all year, despite the fact you're on the road the first 2 weeks of the season. I think this will be a very energized crowd. So, it's a big game. It's a late game on CBS. So, of course, a lot of folks would, have a lot of attention on this game. But, yeah, I mean, it's on the road. If you're facing a very good defense, a defensive-minded coach, you're also facing a very capable quarterback. Actually, I think in a lot of ways, Darnold, it's kind of weird to say this, but he is probably the best quarterback you faced the entire season in terms of the whole package right now. Of course, if you want to go just generically, yeah, Jalen Hurts, but in terms of his passing ability, his mobility, just all of that combined, yeah, it's Sam Darnold. And of course, the thing of Sam, of course, he can make mistakes. He's not necessarily immune to making mistakes, and that's what I think of Todd Bowles and company. Even though it's a guy they've not faced a whole lot. At least from what I can remember, they can try to confuse him a little bit. Sam is definitely prone to having, a game where he turns the ball over a lot. And that's certainly a possibility. I think I do trust Tampa's defense, even with all the injuries and stuff. I think they can at least somewhat, make some, create some negative plays, especially with the D-line and linebackers do. look, they're gonna have a challenge handling JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba. And speaking of, Ohio State receivers, Tampa has theirs with Mecca Abuka, and of course they just faced Chris Olave a few weeks ago, and then they had, or not Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. They'll face Olave again this year twice, and then they obviously have JSN, but and also Marvin Harrison's son. So that's gonna be a challenge, but we'll see with that. I do wonder if the Bucs secondary, if they can at least make a play late in this game to win the games. Again, I do believe it'll be a low-scoring game, very physical game. It's going to be which defense can make a crucial stop late in the game, or at the very least overwhelm the others' O-line. And given Tampa's O-line in their situation, I don't necessarily trust theirs to handle it. So again, it's on the road. I don't like that. It's going to the West Coast again. You're going to a very hostile environment, one of the better environments in the NFL. Of course, I haven't been there before, but from what I've seen on TV, it's like that's a legit atmosphere there. So because of all that, and because of the fact that it's it's on the road, and of course the big thing with Tampa, of course, is their special teams. I am picking Seattle to win. I think they cover. Now it's not a big cover, so like they win by more than 3 points. It doesn't mean you win by 14 plus. I mean, it could be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but I do expect it to be somewhat of a competitive game. But I do think Seattle wins, and I think they slightly cover. But yeah, I just don't like the spot for Tampa. It's on the road. You're coming off an emotional win over, or you're coming off of an emotional loss over, a loss against the Eagles. And again, I just don't trust their special teams right now. And the injury situation is really becoming a problem for them. Again, I could be wrong, and they could go out there and totally destroy any hope that Seattle would have, and they win the game somehow. But I'm just not feeling it right now. So I think Seattle wins, and they slightly cover, but I could be wrong on that. But I do know for sure that's going to be a very physical game, and it's going to be a very competitive game. So there's that. That's the show. Of course, we'll be back on Saturday night, early Sunday morning with our recap show, hopefully, if we're able to do that. But again, Tuesday, next Tuesday probably may have to be a late evening show again, live on YouTube. Now, of course, on Spotify, it doesn't matter. But at least that's the thinking I have. So we're going to have to. I'm not always a fan of it, doing those shows that late, but sometimes we have to do it and we have to deal with it. So but yeah, for the most part we should hopefully you won't be doing this a whole lot more going forward. But look, if we have to make schedule changes, we can. Speaking of scheduling changes, of course last year we had hurricane season and whatnot. It's October now, and I guess you can chat about that real quick. At least I'll give you guys an update on what's going on with that. At least the tropics, but so there's a couple of areas, of course, you're watching from the Hurricane Center, but you have Imelda, which is on the way out. You have an area in between Africa and the Lesser Antilles that they're watching, and then there's an area near just the east of Miami, I believe. Yeah, east of Miami, maybe a little bit south of there that they're watching. It may not be anything. If anything, it's be just a big rainmaker, but definitely some signal from the the models that there could be some stuff happening in the Gulf. Those Central American gyres. Of course, it's that time of the year for those. So we have one more month. We have 1 full month. I mean, well, technically 2, but this month and in November, hopefully everything's fine. But at least for now, everything's somewhat quiet. But there's some areas we're watching. But look, could Florida? Look, are we going to get spared? I don't think so. I think we'll get something before the year is over. But I think that might be it. I think as I'm, sort of thinking about it and whatnot, I think we might just we might just get lucky with one system affecting us, which could be this month. And then I think going forward, besides that, I'm not totally expecting a whole active month. But we'll see. But yeah, that's the show. Again, of course, we'll be back for the live show on Tuesday. Of course, I'll let you know what our plans are for the time on that to be determined. But we also have either a pre-recorded video or a stream on Saturday night, early Sunday morning, going over the games from the past, the college games on Saturday. So, so enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy the games this weekend. Of course, we'll see you hopefully on Saturday and for sure on Tuesday. So until then, take care. We'll see you guys on the next stream.